Somewhere right now, there's a phone sitting on a nightstand that used to belong to someone. Screen off. Battery slowly dying, the way batteries do, whether or not anyone's coming back to charge it. And on that screen, frozen in place, is the very last thing that person ever looked at. Maybe a group chat. Maybe a grocery list. Maybe, and this happens more than you'd think, a half-finished text that just says, "Oh wait," with 3 dots hovering underneath it forever, because the reply never came. We're going to talk about what actually happens to your phone, your accounts, your entire digital fingerprint, in the 6 months after you die. Not in a spooky, campfire story way. In a real documented, here's what the actual terms of service say way. Because it turns out we've built machines that know us better than our own families do, and almost none of us have told those machines what to do when we're gone. Let's start with the first 24 hours, because this is the part everyone assumes is the sad part, and it isn't. The sad part hasn't even started yet. Your phone does not know you died. There is no signal for that. No little notification that says, "User status, deceased, please stand by." Your alarms keep going off. Your reminders keep pinging. Somewhere, 3 weeks from now, a calendar alert is going to pop up for a dentist appointment, cheerfully suggesting you leave now to beat traffic, and there will be nobody in the building to see it. Here's a story that made it all the way to CNN, because it's the story that keeps happening to families over and over. A 40-year-old man named Paul died suddenly of a heart attack. His wife, Rebecca, had watched him unlock his phone probably 10,000 times. Never once needed the code herself. Why would she? He was right there. And then he wasn't, and she was locked out of everything, his photos, his messages, the banking information she desperately needed to handle his affairs, by a 4-digit number that existed only in a dead man's memory. She called Apple. She called the phone carrier. She called the actual police. Everyone told her the same thing. Without legal proof of death and a pre-approved contact, nobody gets in. Not the grieving widow. Not anyone. Your phone was built to protect you from strangers. Rebecca found out the hard way that it can't tell the difference between a stranger and a wife holding a death certificate. Okay. So let's say the family does get access eventually, either because they had a plan or because they fought hard enough for one. What actually happens to everything over the following months? And here's where it gets genuinely fascinating, because the answer is completely different depending on what's in your pocket. If you're an iPhone person, Apple built something called digital legacy. While you're alive, you can name up to 5 people who'll be allowed to request access after you die. Not automatic. Not simple. Your chosen person has to mail Apple an actual death certificate. Apple's team reviews it like a court case. If it's approved, they issue a special temporary version of your Apple ID, and your legacy contact can finally see your photos, your notes, your iCloud backups. But here's the twist nobody expects, the part that turns this into something closer to a ticking clock than a filing cabinet. That access lasts exactly 3 years. After that, Apple deletes the entire account. Not archives it. Not freezes it politely in some digital attic. Deletes it. Every photo of every birthday. Every voice memo you accidentally recorded of yourself singing badly in the car. Every note you wrote to nobody at 2 a.m. because you couldn't sleep. Gone, on a corporate countdown, whether or not your family was emotionally ready for that particular Tuesday. Android tells a Messier story, and honestly, a slightly more chaotic one, like the group project where one member did the reading and the rest are winging it. Google has its own version, called an active account manager, but you have to set it up yourself in advance, while you're still alive and thinking clearly. Nobody offers it to your family afterward. If you never touch that setting, which statistically, you probably haven't, your account just sits there. Indefinitely. Meanwhile, the actual physical phone stays locked behind a fingerprint that belongs to a hand that no longer exists. And if you're a Samsung user specifically, there's no legacy system at all. Your family's only path back in is a court order, and modern hardware encryption is specifically engineered to make even court orders fail more often than they succeed. Sit with that for 1 second. The device holding every photo of your kids, every voice note from your mom, every message from the person you loved most, the device has a stronger vault door than most actual banks. Not because anyone designed it to lock out grieving families. Because it was designed to lock out everyone except you. And the day it matters most, you're the one person who can't be there to open it. Now let's talk social media, because this is where things get, honestly, a little bit funny, in the darkest possible way, and also where they get the most quietly devastating. Facebook was first to build something for this. It's called a memorialized account. The word remembering gets permanently added next to the person's name. Friends can post on the timeline forever. People write to the deceased directly, sometimes years later, like some part of the internet might still be listening. But here's the detail that catches almost everyone off guard. The private messages, every single DM that person ever sent or received, stay sealed. Forever. Not to family. Not to the legacy contact. Nobody. Meta's own policy states it flatly. There is currently a message thread somewhere on this planet that ends mid-conversation, an unanswered you up, from a night that mattered to somebody, and it is going to exist in that unfinished state for the rest of human history, readable by absolutely no one. Instagram runs almost the same playbook. Memorialize it, and the account becomes a quiet, frozen museum. No new posts, no edits, just remembering beside a name and a photo grid that stopped the day the person did. TikTok is where this stops being sad and starts being genuinely eerie. Unlike Facebook or Apple, TikTok has no memorialization system whatsoever. No formal death process. Zero. If your family doesn't happen to know your login, your account just keeps existing exactly as you left it. Same bio. Same profile photo. And the algorithm, which has no concept of mortality and never will, keeps recommending your old videos to strangers scrolling at 1 a.m. who have absolutely no idea the person dancing on their screen died months ago. Researchers have actually started calling these accounts digital ghosts, a term used seriously in academic grief literature, not just as a spooky headline. Profiles that keep circulating, keep collecting views, keep existing in the algorithm's memory long after they've stopped existing anywhere else. And that phrase, digital ghost, isn't just poetic. Two Oxford researchers, Carl Oman and David Watson, ran the actual math on this in 2019. Based on growth trends at the time, they calculated that by around 2070, the number of dead people on Facebook could outnumber the living users on the platform. By the year 2100, they estimated as many as 1.4 billion deceased profiles could exist on a single app. Which means, whether we plan for it or not, the largest gathering of human beings on the internet, eventually, might not be the living at all. It might just be us. Frozen. Forever scrolling nowhere. Now here's where this gets personal, because how you feel about all of this depends enormously on how old you are, and that part might surprise you. If you're Gen Z, watching this on your phone right now, here's the plot twist. You are, statistically, the generation most obsessed with privacy after death. A trust and will estate planning study found that 56% of Gen Z specifically do not want their families to have shared access to their accounts once they're gone. Let that sink in. The generation that grew up narrating their entire lives online, unboxing videos, get-ready-with-me's, 3 a.m. thoughts posted to a public feed, is also the generation most likely to want the door locked behind them. There's something almost poetic about that. You'll show a stranger on the internet your face at your worst moment, but you'd rather your own mother never see your DMs. Millennials are close behind, just slightly less strict about it. Trust and Will's research found 39% of millennials don't want family accessing their emails, texts, or messages after death. But millennials are also, and this part's a little painful, the generation caught in the middle of everything. Juggling caregiving for aging parents while also somehow being expected to have their own affairs in order, and mostly not having them in order, because who has time to write a digital will between 2 jobs and a group chat that's somehow always on fire? Gen X and older millennials tend to actually follow through on planning, because according to estate lawyers who study this stuff, they're the first generation whose entire adult life has existed partly online, cryptocurrency, cloud photo libraries, complicated blended families from divorce and remarriage, so they've had no choice but to think about it early, even if reluctantly. And then there's the generation you might expect to care about this least, and it turns out you'd be exactly wrong. A 2026 study out of the Chi Conference on Human-Computer Interaction, one of the biggest research conferences on this exact topic, specifically studied adults over 60 and found something researchers weren't expecting. Older adults generally have fewer digital traces than younger people, less data, fewer accounts, and because of that, they place noticeably less emotional value on the idea of a digital legacy at all. For someone who grew up mailing physical letters, a locked iCloud account just doesn't carry the same weight as, say, a box of real photographs in an attic. Meanwhile, the Digital Legacy Association found something almost comedic in how universal the confusion is across every single age group. 85% of Facebook users, of any age, have absolutely no idea the legacy contact feature even exists. Nobody read the settings menu. Nobody ever does. Here's a genuinely strange legal wrinkle almost nobody expects, and it might make you laugh out loud in a slightly horrified way. In some places, even a spouse using a password they legitimately know, just to grab some photos or shut off a subscription, can technically violate old computer misuse laws that were written decades before anyone imagined a smartphone existed. The Law Society has specifically flagged this. Grief, apparently, does not count as legal permission. Love does not override a terms of service agreement nobody read in the first place. And then there are the small, almost comic, deeply human failures nobody warns you about. Streaming subscriptions that quietly keep charging a dead person's credit card for months because nobody remembered to cancel Disney Plus during a funeral. Cloud storage renewing itself automatically forever, faithfully protecting 4,000 blurry vacation photos nobody asked it to protect, purely because the payment method still technically works. Game accounts holding digital items technically worth real money, which legally count as part of an estate, but which almost no probate lawyer on earth actually knows how to appraise or transfer, because nobody trained for how much is this glowing digital sword worth in a will. But underneath all of the logistics, all of the terms of service nightmares, there's something genuinely moving happening here too, something grief researchers take seriously rather than dismiss. Psychologists studying this call it the continuing bond theory, first proposed by researcher Dennis Klass and colleagues, and it argues something that pushes back against the old idea that healthy grieving means fully letting go. Instead, it suggests that maintaining some ongoing connection to someone who died, a voicemail you still haven't deleted, a birthday reminder that pops up and stings a little every single year, can actually be part of healing, not an obstacle to it. Some researchers have even studied AI chatbots trained on a deceased person's old messages, sometimes called Griefbots, and in one of the only in-depth studies done so far, mourners who used them rated the experience more comforting, in the moment, than talking to close friends. As one participant in that study put it, simply, society doesn't really like grief. People want you to move on before you're ready. A frozen Instagram profile, in a strange way, never rushes you. So here's where we land, 6 months out. Your phone, wherever it physically sits, still has a fingerprint sensor faithfully waiting for a hand that isn't coming back. Facial recognition still quietly primed to recognize a face nobody will ever hold up to it again. Somewhere in a server farm, a silent 3-year countdown is ticking toward a permanent deletion that almost nobody knew was even set. And somewhere else, an algorithm with absolutely no concept of mortality is still recommending your old videos to strangers, cheerfully, at 1 a.m. forever, or at least until the servers themselves eventually die too. We built machines that remember our routines, our voices, our 3 a.m. searches, our unfinished conversations, better than any human ever could. And most of us have still never opened the one settings menu that tells those machines what to do the day we're not around to manage them anymore. Not because we don't care. Because death has always felt like something scheduled for later, some vague future Tuesday, far enough away that the settings could wait 1 more year. They can't, though. Not really. Somewhere right now, there's a phone on a nightstand that used to be someone, quietly, faithfully, still trying its absolute best to be them. And in 6 months, it might still be doing exactly that. Not because anything about it is haunted. Just because nobody ever got around to telling it to stop.